Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for an info-packed podcast filled with honest advice, tips, and resources. I'm Trudy J, and I'm here with
Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Wendy Vella.
I got
You
everything
suck.
else.
You suck.
I got the intro right, but not the next bit. Damn it.
We'll get there. It's only been 350 episodes. Jeez,
Changed. Anyway, don't make changes. I don't do well change, all right?
I know.
Who does? Who
no.
does?
I used to think I did, but I think maybe it's just in my old age. I'm losing the ability.
Because you are so old. Yeah.
Speaking
Anywho,
of changes,
this week we're speaking of changes. Is that no? We're doing a podcast on getting creative, and the actual title, which is a really cool one that Cheryl actually thought up, and we bow at her feet for her ability to make up these kinds of things. The idea is running with an idea instead of away from it.
Ooh,
Dun,
so
dun,
good.
dun.
So good.
So it's how to, if you're feeling like you're in a creativity rut, or you're not sure where to go next, or where's trying to think up a new good idea, this episode is all about ways that you can flip things around and twist them up and try and sort of create your next amazing idea for your next book. So the first one, and these guys are looking at me in a scared face because we're going to do this a little bit off the cuff, and I'm going to throw questions at them, and they're going to have to answer
just a little
me.
bit off the cuff, completely off the cuff.
Completely off. You know, I've got some stuff written down. I mean, it's, you know,
You
somewhat
might have,
off
but
the
we
cuff. I'm in control.
I
You
got
guys are
nada.
screwed. Yeah, basically that's it. So the first idea that we have that you can kind of look at and use maybe in your writing is to invent from irritation. So it's looking at all the things that irritate the heck out of you in your life, and look at ways that you could maybe use them in your books as your core idea, or even as a scene or something like that. So what we mean is those, you know, like the weather, or what other
there's
things?
so many things to choose from. It's almost a limitless smorgasbord of
That's right.
irritations. But let's go with the weather, because in theory we can't get into trouble for that.
No,
In theory,
we don't
we
want
can't.
to.
So
I'll
how
add to
would
the-
you use the weather as in your book? Like, what would it be? Would it be a storm, something coming in that's...
You know what I immediately thought of is that you're walking along the road and a car or a bus goes past and through a puddle and just it washes up over you. You know,
you completely...
and you're soaked and you're on the way to a really important date or
meeting or job interview or something.
And you look like a drowned rat now.
And it's something you can't go home and get changed for. It's something you have to just continue on.
You got to get there.
So
and on the other side, the sun, it might be too hot and you're outside and you're trying to be cool and standing there chatting to someone, and then your face is just turned into a lobster and you're sweating. There's so many options. Or
you're in a storm. It's like the or what other weather is there? There's like in the middle
hail
of
a
snow. Snow's a great one.
Oh, that could be really pretty, couldn't it? It's dropping down, blah blah blah, but then it melts and
it turns to ice. On your butt.
Your car gets stuck.
We I'm literally reading a book called Weather Girl at the moment. I think TikTok recommended it to me, and it's a girl who's a weather girl. So and she's always loved the weather and things like that. So it's you know, there's all sorts of ways that you can incorporate that. But
changes the concept of the book, the weather.
And it's kind of flows through everything.
How come it's weather men and weather girls? Why aren't girls women? I mean, I know that we call ourselves as spa girls, but that's self-named and we're allowed to. But nobody else is allowed to call me a girl.
We're the spa girls.
I don't know. But let's not go there. No.
Okay, fine.
But we're talking about things that irritate us. And
so other things that irritate you, like when your partner doesn't do the dishes properly, or the dog poops.
I want to say, when you nail
laundry
polish chips and you've only just had it on for a very short time, and you have to get back and go out because you've got a date or you're going out and you want to wear these open-toed sandals that are just fantastic, and you look down, you've got a chip on your nail.
How do you use that then? Or you could use it like in a murder scene where the chipped nail is something that's a vital clue in one of Cheryl's cozy mysteries or something like that. Like, how else could you use it? Or
you make an impression on someone, and this person's been like is always immaculate, and you turn up and you got chipped toenail polish.
Toenails though, like what kind of random weird fetishes looking at somebody's
yeah,
toenails.
But that's maybe it. Maybe they
saying-
do have a
I'm
random
not
weird fetish.
saying it's a weird thing. I'm just saying I don't care about toenail polish personally because mine's been on for 6 months and it's just growing out. But yeah, like my hair. But the point of this whole thing is, if you're making such a big deal and you've gone out and got them done for the first time in ages and you're ready to go and you're growing out, it's just an irritation,
that could blow up into something far more.
And it can be, it can tell you more about that character being annoyed at the nail polish. But if another character notices it, for example, then that tells you about them too.
So
like
it's the snotty mum or the snotty mum, you know, it's like, oh, look, you just had one job to come looking nice and look at your toes.
Or if you're in a super unexpected, passionate, one-off instant thing that night and your toenails are like emus because you've been in a pandemic for 6 months and they're super long, and then
right.
But you can't cut your toenails.
The person that you're
are
with,
you talking booty call sort of thing?
Yeah, but you've got like emu claws, and that's not good.
No, I think people.
I'm just really grossed out now. I'm kind of like looking at these emu claw toes that you can still cut when you're at home, and I don't know
the people in the self-checkout line that have a great big huge trolley of food, and it's like supposed to be 12 and under.
Oh yeah, see,
yeah,
that's annoying.
But it turns out that it was the cute guy, the manager of the store, let them in because they were old and he was just
we don't like the cute guy anymore because he's done that.
Because it's just annoying. Or maybe it's they meet them and they discover that they're the mother of the cute guy that she eventually meets and marries. You know, like there's just.
Or you're standing in line behind the people with the trolley with more than 12 items and they're one at a time individually putting them up, and you are running late for your job interview that you have wanted all your life, but you needed to get the breath mints and go through the self-checkout to get to the job interview and make sure you didn't put the garlic that you had for breakfast all over your boss.
And then they spill something on the thing, and then it gets all over your brand new shoes that you've got wearing to impress, you know, like.
And then you open up the packet of white.
No, on the ground. I spilled something on the ground.
Okay. And the mind goes, you can open the wet wipes and you're starting to scrub the shirt that you've carefully pressed to wear because you've got food down it, and someone's behind you going, you haven't bought those yet, so you can't use them. And
but the fluff comes off of them, and now you've got white bits on your shirt. It's taking the colour out of your beautiful cerise jumper.
So the point of all of this is that you take a small like things that are annoying, and then you just pile it on, and it actually what that's doing, like piling on that kind of situation, is adding tension and kind of like, and it's something that we can all kind of connect to because we've all been there and stood in that stupid supermarket line when there's been someone annoying
behind the really tall guy with the wide shoulders and hot buns.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
Well, that was putting a good slant on.
I can honestly say that's never happened to me at the supermarket, but I'm up for it. But that's so true, Trudy, because it's all about connecting, like a realistic thing, connecting, even if it's in a supernatural world, it's those little human connections, those common experiences that we all experience regardless of where we're from, or how we shop or what we're buying. It's the same. It's that same feeling of frustration or irritation.
So that's our first idea. That was the invent from irritation. The next idea we had was mashups, like taking two sort of separate ideas and putting them together and making them into something else. So an example, my favorite, well, I don't know if it's a mashup quite, but my friend Tanya has this awesome kids book. I'm not even sure if it's available still, and it's this kid is he gets bitten by a werewolf and turns into a werewolf, but he's actually allergic to dog hair. So every time he turns into a werewolf, instead of it being really cool and awesome, he gets all allergy filled and he ends up looking kind of like horrific because he's wolf, but with
that's brilliant,
like
sneezing and runny nose,
but like he's puffed up and he's got things all over his, you know, like scratching and itching, and it just is not cool. But he has to go through this every, you know, like, so some stuff like that where it's just like we take an idea and change it up. That's actually just changing it up. It's not quite mashup.
More opposites, isn't it? Like, so I think it's really important that your characters are not in unity. you know, like they're not as one. And insofar as like I've got a fighter pilot and the man who's in it is just scared of flying, you know, like there's got to be that juxtaposition. Is that the word? So yes, is that right?
Yes,
And
that's a very good word too.
Is it? You know, I just pulled that out. And it's just, you know, opposites attract are vitally important in situations because, and quite often if I'm writing a book and going through it, like at the moment I'm about 40,000 words in, and I just thought, well, it's all a bit blah, to be honest, you know, like I need to go back now and amp it up by putting that sort of, you know, irritation and that sort of opposites attract stuff. And quite often that is what makes a story.
Yeah. And often if it's the mashup kind of thing of, you know, like this, your character is a female fighter pilot coming in and suddenly you add that instead of her being an accountant, she's this fight, you know, like it just gives you immediate story.
And you know, her friend's a real girly girl and she's a fighter pilot being in a man's world, so she wears work boots and, for you know, her cap everywhere and stuff like that. So there's that whole difference instantly from a lot of the other girls that she spends time with, you know.
So I'm seeing an analogy here because when you think about it, it's an irritant that makes the pool, right? It's the irritant, the sand making the pool, and it's sort of the same. So we kind of started this off with the irritation that's making our ideas, but now it's within the actual story context. It's the irritation is what's building the conflict.
Yeah,
it's all coming together
because,
as a giant.
Because they're so different. They're not they're not pigeonholed. They're not this is the cute girl and she's going to meet the cute guy and they're going to get together eventually. But what the heck are we going to do to them to make them not get together for quite a while?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is she gone, Char?
She's just frozen, but it's quite attractive, isn't it?
Also, I think that you need to have, like, nobody wants to read perfect characters, so you need them to have.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want to read perfect characters. She's 100%.
She's gone under, and I don't think she's realised it. So we'll just keep going.
The thing about perfect characters is that's not the world.
That's boring too.
It's not the world we've all read perfectly written, well-crafted books that just leave us like blah. You know, like and so you need to add that conflict from characters and from, you know, the juxtaposition. I'm using that word again. You know,
and so the mashup and the irritation are two ways that you can amp up that thing. So I want to talk about actual proper mashups, though. I feel like we kind of haven't given a good example of a cozy mystery that
shouldn't be mashed together.
No, that's not at all what I meant, Wendy. Thank you for bringing that up, though. It was a good thing. No, like okay, maybe cozy mystery isn't a good one, but like two genres, mashing them together, although that makes it hard at the end. I'm not sure I'd recommend mashing up two genres, but maybe two tropes that don't normally sit easily together. Like give me some tropes, people. Give me some tropes.
I knew she was
enemies to lovers.
Enemies to lovers mashed up with
Cinderella story.
Secret baby. Cinderella story, enemies to lovers. I mean, maybe Cinderella meets Prince Charming at the ball and he's a complete, she hates him, like they hate from the beginning, and it's the process. So you're changing the Cinderella story from a I don't know what they were, just insta love story to an enemies to lovers story, and immediately that's kind of intriguing, right? Like what changes in that story and what can you do? I'm kind of interested in that, even as I talk about that.
You go and write it. You go write that.
I might go write that.
Yeah, you go write that.
It could be like a grumpy sunshine, but with a baby, a secret baby or something. I don't know, like just things like that don't seem to kind of immediately sit well together, but maybe you can make them sit well together. They could be. A good writer can do that too.
You know, they can. A good writer can. Well, any writer actually can can mash those things together and make them into a good story. And it just steps you out of the square slightly, but you're still within that genre that you want to be in. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking up Tanya Hutley, author, because she does it really, really well. My friend Tanya, and I wanted to be able to tell you the name
I'd say
of these
that
other books.
Are you guys, you got me okay?
Yeah, we got
you. Oh, sorry. We've got, it's super windy here, and I suspect, because the internet went out, and I suspect a tree came down. So I apologize if I freeze. But just the thing with tropes. So I think it's important to respect the tropes though too. So you can't call something an enemies to lovers if it's not, you know, in terms of marketing or in terms of your blurb, but you can always, like you say, just flip it a little bit or just kind of tweak it. You know, I think is the way to.
But that's the fun of the mashup, right? Like bashing up against the what are the expectations of a friends to lovers story that suddenly becomes something else, like. And that's kind of where the conflict lies, and where you've got to kind of I absolutely don't break the genre conventions or the trope conventions, I guess, but do it.
But I think also you've got to be aware of the fact that all these books have been written before. It's just the slant you put on them, right? It's the difference that you bring to them by making someone who doesn't like to fly and someone who's a pilot, you know, or those are all like things. All those genres are out there. It's your take on them, you know. Those tropes.
Another one, and I haven't read this because it doesn't necessarily appeal to me, but it's the one that's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. That, you know, like taking that movie and adding I don't like zombies, so I've never read it, but it was made into a movie. I mean, it's really popular. People enjoyed that, so it's maybe something like that you can think of, and you can be just things that don't seem to fit together and try and figure out a way that they could.
And just changing things up slightly too, you know. If things aren't working for you, then change them up, have a good look at them and go, well, why is this not working, and what do I need to bring in, what conflict do I need to bring in, what you know, characters, or, you know, whatever.
How can I amp this up?
Maybe just throw something silly in there and see how it works, because I mean, if you don't try something, you'll never know. But if you had an idea in the first place, then, you know, what's the harm? You can write as much, you can easily write something out as you can write it in. You know?
Exactly. And you think, even though you can, that's another pearl of wisdom from Cher. But it's like the last book I wrote, I put a pony, a little donkey had arrived at this guy's place. He's got a farm, and she brought her duck with her, and I just thought, I wonder how this is going to go, but hey, it was a bit of fun. Everyone loves Monica and her duck, you know, like I would never have thought they would have loved it, but they do. So it's just thinking outside the square, instead of bringing a dog or a cat in. You know,
exactly. The donkey and a duck.
And the town had a poll to name the duck.
It's not like she's got a hippopotamus, it's a duck, so it's like a smaller thing.
Suitable to a farm.
That's right. You know, so it's just that little point of difference, give everyone a bit of a laugh, add a little bit more to the story. You know,
and it comes under the next title for what we're going to talk about, is an unexpected idea. So something that's kind of, again, outside of the box, like instead of having them have normal animals, it's a donkey and a duck that whatever they do. I mean, and that just creates something a little bit. And I think, because often they talk about, like, how do you make something memorable, and what we remember isn't necessarily always what happened exactly, but how we felt about it, our emotions. So if you can add in something that provides an emotion to them, like, I don't know whether it counts as, oh, look at the cute duck, or whether, but just something that's emotional, that's going to make them remember what's happening, or make them remember the book. So I don't know, what examples have you got that in that?
Well, to be honest, it's just a thread that can run through the book as a second thread too. You know, I mean, you can't be always on about the intensity of the characters and do you know what I mean? There's got to be I call them the supporting cast. Right, that's what drives the book through. So if your supporting cast doesn't stand up to the weight of the story, I think that can let it down a little bit, you know, because that supporting cast can actually make the main couple better.
I don't think you want to elaborate extensively on that character. But if you have one thing, or, you know, probably more than one, but one thing in particular that you associate with that character, if they spin off to their own books or appear in other books later on, you know immediately, oh, that's the guy that has the donkey, or that's the guy that has a ridiculous looking mullet, you know.
Exactly.
So the unexpected idea could be small, like a donkey or a duck, or characters, or it could be something bigger, like I actually think that the fighter pilot fits in under this idea too. It's kind of like, I know she's from the beginning, but it's just something that kind of takes it to the next level in some ways. Unexpected ideas could be taking them to a different place. You're writing along and you're going, oh, this is all a bit blah. Something unexpected happens and takes them to a new actual physical location, like a new setting. Like they could go to I don't know, they could be kidnapped and go somewhere else, or they could just they go on a date and he takes you somewhere completely random,
taking them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah,
and
especially if maybe one of the characters can do it to the other, like if it's a date and the guy takes the girl somewhere that's completely out of her realm of experience, like you know, the fancy lawyer chick goes to a rowdy line dancing bar or something like that, you know, like and then that in itself creates kind of, you know, she's a fish out of water thing, you know, that whole kind of concept.
Take control away, because she's a controlled person and she likes to be in her environment and everything is so, and then you put her into an environment that's not comfortable.
And see what happens, and you know that things are going to happen. And it could go one of two ways. Maybe she gets into it and she loves it and thinks it's amazing, or maybe it bring back horrible childhood memories of that time she went line dancing and saw someone shot and runs off screaming. And those are two completely different situations to deal with, but they could both be just as interesting, you know. So go with
Or she just had a horrible time line dancing and got humiliated. I don't think someone needs to die because of it.
Someone always needs to die.
Depends what kind of story it is. It may be a cozy mystery, in which case somebody does need to die.
Well, that's right. Exactly. That's right. You can have a line dancing.
Just write that down the line.
Line dancing cozy mystery rocks, man.
I really am writing that down.
See, this is a brainstorming session for us just as much as anyone else. And the next thing I had on the list was looking for a small idea rather than something that's really big. So does it have to be this big highfalutin kind of conceptualized thing? Sometimes it can just be a small thing that takes your attention, like and it could be something like in my mind what comes up is like a cozy mystery, how a lot of the cozies have kind of got knitting or baking or cross stitch. I don't know if there's cross stitch ones, but I imagine there should be, or things like that, and they become around part of the story is around something like that is like the love of knitting becomes a thing that's incorporated into the storyline. So is there something like that you can incorporate into your book that takes it somewhere different but becomes a place that you can come back to, almost like I don't know, and that people can relate to? And
what do you mean giving the main character something different? Like knitting,
that is affixed to their identity.
That's right.
What they do, who they are.
And I actually think that's a really valid, important point, Cher, is that sometimes you get people and they just add quirks into the book and they just go, oh, this person trips over all the time, and they I don't know, I can't think of something off the top of my head. They collect frogs, and then there's absolutely no relevance to the story. And you kind of want to give them quirks that are relevant to the story. So like if it's knitting in the cozy mystery, well, maybe she goes back to her knitting group and they discuss the murder, and that's how she figures out what happens. Or something like that. Or maybe
she feels closer to her grandmother, because her grandmother always knitted and her grandmother passed away, was the one person she was close to, so that's why she knits. And
maybe the grandmother was the one who also taught her the love of figuring out clues. Like there's you just want there to be a few links in there, just to kind of and it should be adding depth. Just not that she liked to collect frogs and for no reason, and nothing that I mean, and if it was that she collects frogs because she's a person who studies frogs, and I don't know what that's called, but something like that, and then frogologist. And then the final clue is some really big piece of information that tells her that Kermit did it, and then she's the only one who could have known that because she collects frogs and is a frogologist. Then that's cool and makes sense.
Is that a word though, really?
No, it's not a word.
It sounded really good.
Does it really though?
Well, here's the thing. You three all said it. So I'm like, I've never heard that word before. I'm sure it's not a word. Frogology? I mean, come on, people.
We just like to sound knowledgeable.
We were just going with it.
You sold it to me. I'm like, I've reached this age and I still
She doesn't know the truth, people. She does not know the truth.
Anywho, so the point is, make sure that it links, but do small things. Like there can be small things that become important, or it could be small but important.
But again, like twisting that. Okay, the character collects frogs, but maybe they're terrified of frogs, and maybe in order to rescue the hero or the heroine, they have to go into a lake that's filled with tadpoles and slimy, and they can feel the sliminess going past their legs and all that kind of stuff.
Move on.
Yeah. So these things are all, it's just take little ideas and in fact this is kind of a cool thing you could brainstorm on, right? Like take something that's little and or something that doesn't seem that big and just look at all the ways you could extrapolate that out. Like, is it a fear of frogs? Is it a love of frogs? You know, is it Kermit the Frog that she watched when she was a kid and grandma used to, I don't know.
Okay, I want to tell you what it's really. I want to tell you what a frog person is really called.
Okay.
I think frogologist is better than herpetologist.
Herpetologist.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
It sounds too close to herpes for me.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So and another example of the small thing is that I was talking to my editor the other day, and I was sort of talking to her about a new plot line for a new book, my next series that I want to write, and my ideas were all kind of these big kind of ideas over the overarching kind of storyline, and I had this person going over here and doing this thing for revenge and whatever else, and she kind of said, yeah, that's cool, but what about what's intimate and personal to the person who's the main character? What about something that means something to them? And I had kind of gone with the bigger storyline and sort of forgotten about making sure that it mattered to the protagonist. And I had some things that mattered to them, but it wasn't as personal as it should have been. So something, and I think that as when we're reading our books, we want to be connected to that main character. And so if you're doing there's too much of the bigger storyline and not just things that are personal and mean something to that character at close up, then you're going to miss something as well. So just make sure those things are
in line,
and that it works together in that way. So is there anything else to add for small, or am I going to move on to the next thing?
Okay.
Go. No, go share.
No,
well, I was just thinking small can be literally tiny, even like finding something or losing something, or I don't know, just we all do everyday things in our life, but sometimes they lead on to other things, you know, that it's kind of like a pathway to what's coming next. And I think you can't underestimate small things.
And gestures, small gestures are part of it too. Something that is aligned totally with them. I had a character who used to fan her fingers when she was nervous, and that was her thing, and that was all he used to see. I think I spoke of before, but that was what he used to see.
Yeah,
you know?
one of mine taps her thighs.
Yes,
tapping is actually a thing. But she taps her thighs to deal with her anxiety.
Whereas if a character was raising their middle finger the whole time, that would be a very different
probably be
a small gesture. But
I think that would suggest that
not
they
going to work
happy.
in a cozy mystery.
No.
So and a really good point about those small gestures that Wendy just made was that the main character, the guy, noticed it about the woman. It was kind of like it's the fact that they notice them, it becomes seen, and if it's something really small that no one else sees but someone who's important to them does see, that's a really that's quite powerful. That shows the reader that this person is noticing them and is connected to them. So that's a good way to do that. So the next one, and Shara's already done this a couple of times, but what's funny about a situation? So you could take this really serious traumatic thing. I don't want to make fun of anything, but like, just if there was someone who had anxiety, let's go with anxiety, how could you make it funny, like without kind of like in a sense? I think the person,
you've got to make sure it's you laughing at yourself.
So
not someone else laughing at her.
So it could be like the character's tapping their thigh because of anxiety, but maybe they always tap out "We Will Rock You" by
exactly
something like that.
I think it's always got to be, particularly if it's something that's perceived as something that people don't necessarily love having. It's got to be done in an empathetic and sympathetic way, but also character centered. So it's from the character, like Wendy says, the character's got to have insight, not the hero going, man, look, she is having another panic attack kind of thing.
It's like putting your hair into a ponytail and using making sure the band goes around 3 times, right?
Exactly.
So
and
those
that's like normal people. And when you're hanging the washing out, the pegs do have to, like, the same color has to go in the same.
This is just, we've heard this sort of stuff. This is
or
not
the
us.
world will end. So
Yeah,
you've got to have that kind of
No, I've seen it. I've been to your houses and I've seen it.
So, but it's that kind of thing. Yeah, I think. And again, though, it's amusing, but it's not cruel. I think you have to kind of.
But I think that's a really valid point. It's the character making fun of themselves at their own expense. Like, it's not someone else coming in and doing it, and it's
somebody else
making
could,
it,
like the bad person could
Yes.
actually use that as a way to dig at them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that actually makes the bad person even worse, right? Like when the bad person has seen something that's so personal to that person, like goes in like and mocks them for putting the pegs in matching order, and like all the pink ones have to be for the undies and all the white ones have to be,
and they're saying it out loud to a group of people or something.
Like, and then that's showing something that's intimate and personal that they've noticed about that person. Maybe that's I don't know, that's a small way to do it. But I mean, there must be other ways to, like, what is funny about it? Like,
well, I think going back to anxiety. So I've spoken about it before. I'm not a great flyer at all, and I get very, very anxious and etc. And I get really nauseous. And so I could see in a story of your character, either hero or heroine, but maybe let's go with the heroine because that's who I can relate to the most with this. If you've got some person beside you that's a very for example, not the hero, but maybe another character or the villainous character that's mocking the person for being anxious about flying, then at the point where I want to throw up, I'm going to throw up in their lap, right? Like you can kind of do it that way.
Yeah.
One scene that springs to mind, and I'm sure I mentioned it before, is in Steel Magnolias, when Sally Field is absolutely distraught about losing her daughter, and she is sobbing and saying, you know, I'm just so angry, I just want to hit one, and Olympia Dukakis thrusts buddy Shirley MacLaine in front of her and says, hit her, you know, and I mean, literally, I was sobbing and crying in that scene, you know, and even when you read the book, it's there, you know, you just feel the power of laughter in that moment, you know?
And that's something that's been carried on through the whole movie, right? Like they don't like each other through the movie, and they have issues. Is that right?
They love each other. They actually love each other, but that there's this friction the whole time with the book, because they're just such different people. Like they've known each other all their lives, you know.
So that scene, her kind of pushing Shirley MacLaine in and saying, well, and I wish I knew the characters' names because I feel weird using the but you know, then that makes sense. So you wouldn't create that, you wouldn't do that to two characters who didn't hate, you know, have this friction in a sad scene like that. You have to set it up properly, but if you can and do, then something like that can actually be really, really powerful, because you kind of, it's sort of adding another level or another, I don't know.
And you wouldn't expect something like that at a funeral, you know. You wouldn't expect somebody to just go off their face like that, and just, you know, somebody wailing and crying. Sure, I guess that happens. I've actually witnessed it myself, like in that scenario. But but having somebody like throw somebody at you and say, you know.
It's actually a very funny piece of writing. And they do say that, like, you know, in comedy writing, they talk about the wavy line and the straight line, and the way I always think of it is the Big Bang Theory, and you've got Sheldon, and who's the other guy? What's the other guy's name? Leonard. And so Sheldon is the wavy line and Leonard is the straight line. And what that means is that Leonard is a straight guy. He acts as he is. He doesn't try to be funny. He tries to be, whereas Sheldon has all the jokes. Like, and again, actually Sheldon's he's not trying to be funny necessarily, but he's the one with all the kind of humor, and it gets
Leonard.
But they do swap, don't they? They do swap that role, if you think about it, even though one is perhaps portrayed as the other. I mean, by his attitude towards Sheldon, Leonard often becomes the funny guy, doesn't he?
But he's still the one, like Sheldon is still the one with all the quirks and all the weird stuff going on, and Leonard is, I mean, but in the context of nerdy guys in there, he's always the one, he might get to say the jokes, but he's always
he's the most sensible,
the one who doesn't have as many, whereas Sheldon has all the quirks and all the weirdness and all that. He creates a lot of the humor, like a lot of the humor of that show is all of the others reacting against Sheldon, like bouncing, you think about Penny coming in and
it's the reaction, isn't it, to him?
And so that's maybe when you're trying to think about something funny or what is funny about a situation, that maybe that helps, like who's the
I think humor can be really hard, though. It's a really hard thing to write humor. And so I think it's the best thing about humor is it's got to be relatable, I think, and otherwise it becomes, there's a really fine line between when it falls flat, and it's also not necessarily picked up. I mean, we probably get both types of humor, like British and American humor. As somebody that's neither, it's quite different, and so some things don't necessarily resonate across different audiences, so just be aware of that one. I would just say in this, but always go to the character. I would always do it character led. So I just can't, just because the time is getting on, but I just wanted to talk about some tools. So do you guys have any tools that you use in order to to kind of lasso these ideas into fruition, or techniques?
No.
I have. I just slap them in there, and if they
slap them in there, but you do,
they come out.
Well, the biggest tool you've got is your brain, first of all. I think that's it. And I think and also it's the noticing, like you said, that going right back to the beginning, the noticing the irritations when you're standing in the supermarket queue, looking at your toenails, thinking, oh my goodness, what happens if anybody sees them? But I've got this one here, and it's called Story Cubes, and I bought these many years ago for the kids, and they're dice, I'm just going to show that to you, 6, and you roll them, and it's like a story prompt or a action prompt or a character prompt, and if you're sitting there and you're thinking this is all very blah, they're fantastic because it's just a visual sort of thing. And the other thing I used to read were the horoscopes in the newspaper, like the daily horoscopes, and just pick one of those. Doesn't matter what it is, just pick one, those little short ones, and just make that,
that's who the character is.
A windfall. You're going to lose a windfall today, or you're going to, whatever.
Add that into your story. That's interesting.
I see.
That's
and
quite
also, cool. Another really, really good place to get some ideas is Readsy. They have some writing prompts. If you join the newsletter, they'll send you some every you can just make them into a short story. But actually, you could use them as a basis of.
And a fortune cookie.
A fortune cookie.
Nice.
You can buy them. That's cool. I'd get them.
Something somebody says, and you think, that's
well. I mean, we all listen to strangers, don't we? Talking. I know I do in cafes and things. You're always listening.
Yeah.
I'm always saying to whoever I'm with, shh, I need to talk.
Another good thing is to do the opposite of what you're thinking of doing. Like you've got the story idea and you go, well, what if I did the opposite? Like something like that, or flip it somehow. It's like, someone was talking about a character, and they something was happening in a scene, and they went, this is boring. And they flipped what was happening, like as in they changed the characters around. So like if it was, can't think of it right now, but
it's like point of views. Point of view, change it to this.
But this is actually literally changing what they were doing in the scene. Like if one of them's teaching scuba diving, one of them's learning, flip it so that someone, that's a bad idea because they're teaching each other. But like
the personality has to change, doesn't it?
So not the personality, but whatever
what the character does. For inspiration, refer to the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza, he does the opposite of everything that he would naturally do, and it's hilarious. And so
that movie, the Yes Man, he has to say yes to everything.
So something like that can really flip things up and make it kind of amp it up, and then give you story as part of that. Like sometimes if you're kind of going, oh, there's nothing more to do here, well, what if you flipped it or did something like that? What would the story then be? Like that can be kind of amazing. Or turn up the heat is another example I have here. So make it even harder, make it even more so. Like what if they were, if they were in danger of losing their business, that's bad. But what if losing their business meant that they were going to have no money and they had kids and they were going to lose the kids or something? Or maybe they're in the middle of a custody battle and they're going to lose the kids to the other partner if they lose it. You know, like it's not just about losing the business, but it's about losing the kids. And then something
so the
else,
legacy
you know,
their parents have left was going to be gone forever.
Yeah, you like just amp it up, like make it even worse than it was already, and then up the stakes. I guess that's what that is. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So is that us? Is that kind of all the
I
ideas that we
think
had?
it is. I think we've just like given them so much information. We've just float out there. They're going to write a bestseller.
Go and write something right now.
Yeah.
Thank us in your dedication if you write a bestseller from one of these ideas, please, and let us know that you've done that, because that would be cool.
Come along to Spa Girls Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, website.
Boom,
and let us know.
Boom.
And thanks to all our Patreon peeps who are loving us.
Thank you so much, the new people. It's wonderful to see you in our Mastermind Facebook group.
Yeah. Awesome. And otherwise, that's it for now for this episode of the Spa Girls Podcast. We will be back again next week. But for now, see you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.